these can be directly applied, I believe, to what's happening in Ukraine. So at that point, we'll move on, but events in Ukraine clearly targeting the American election. So Mark, let's bring you into the UK column news today. Tell us about what's been happening around Kamala Harris.
Well, this is tying in, Brian. Good day to everyone. This ties into media deception of one species or one context or another. Kamala, Coronated, this is from the most recent edition, the print edition of American Free Press. Mainstream media goes all in to get Harris elected. And we'll move on from there, and I'll explain in a more wide manner. This is very reminiscent. The Time magazine coronating Kamala Harris is from the 26th of August, 2024. But remember, back on the 23rd of October in 2006, Time magazine also coronated Barack Obama, who was an obscure Illinois state senator before he became a U.S. senator, and made his way up the ladder, and voila, he was our first Black president, even though technically he was mulatto. And the same thing with Kamala racially. I'll briefly comment on that. She is at best half Black, but probably less than that. And we'll get into that more in another broadcast. But of course, the media makes a lot of that and her gender to pump this up. But a little bit of details from this front page AFP piece. The first couple paragraphs pretty much explain it. And then the last one, on August 12th, Time magazine published an artist's stylized rendering of Vice President Kamala Harris, drawing her to look up to the heavens, despite the fact that Harris refused a sit-down interview with the iconic magazine. The editors and publishers still made the decision to celebrate and praise the far-left politician. And then I could probably add a little more. Ever since a palace coup at the Democratic Party replaced the elderly, cognitively impaired Joe Biden with Harris, the vice president has refused to sit down for an interview, instead choosing to travel around the country to deliver the exact same speech straight off of a teleprompter. Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, we'll talk about him in a few minutes, have yet to publish anything that lays out where they will stand on the most important issues of the day, including immigration, the economy, and war. But the media still keeps fawning over them. And I'll jump to this next part toward the end. That article mentions this lady. You can go on. The article mentions this lady, Sarah Fisher of Axios. And as AFP indicated, and then I went to the Axios publication online to confirm this, the Harris campaign has been editing news headlines and descriptions within Google search ads that make it appear as if The Guardian, Reuters, CBS News, and other major publishers are on Kamala's side. So there's some direct manipulation going on here. It's not just bias. And we'll continue from there. This is a little more detail from Axios. The Harris campaign has been editing news headlines and descriptions within Google search ads, as I noted, that make it appear as if The Guardian, Reuters, CBS, and other major publishers are on her side. Axios has found why it matters. It's a common practice in the commercial advertising world that doesn't violate Google's policies, but the ads mimic real news results from search closely enough that they have news outlets caught off guard. According to Google's Ad Transparency Center, the Trump campaign isn't running these types of ads, but this technique has been used by campaigns before. The ads say that they are sponsored, but it's not immediately clear that the text that accompanies real news links is written by the campaigns and not by the media publication itself. So this is a rather unusual thing. These are some actual screenshots that Axios did of the merger between advertising and news that we're talking about, where the Harris campaign apparently is manipulating the headlines. VP Harris's economic vision, lower costs and higher wages. Tim Walz's military service. He's of course, the governor of Minnesota and the VP pick, 24 years in the National Guard. The next slide is a couple more examples of these. One has to do with inflation is down under the Biden-Harris administration. The U.S. is winning the inflation fight. So again, the question is, did the Biden-Harris, the Harris-Walz campaign actually alter those sub-headlines or the main headlines? And apparently, to some fairly significant extent, they have done so. Since August 3rd, nearly a dozen news companies have been used in these types of ads from the Harris campaign. Nearly a dozen news companies. Examples include the independent UK, National Public Radio, Associated Press, The Guardian, USA Today, Public Television, PBS in the US, CNN, CBS News, and Time Magazine, and others, even a North Dakota radio station. These ads include links to real articles from the news outlets, but the headlines and supporting text have been altered to read as though the articles support the Harris campaign's objectives. And that's probably a sufficient read on that, Brian. But it definitely suggests that the media is going all out, even beyond what they did for Obama, which was very significant in order to get the Harris-Walz ticket absolute top billing here. Now, this item here, Brian, is from the Minnesota governor's office itself. We can talk just a little bit in a couple of minutes that I have left here about Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, her VP partner. And back in 2022, now take note of that, the pandemic as we knew it was just about 2 years old. So there was some knowledge that the shots, the injections posed some danger to the public. It wasn't like this was January or March 2020. This was January of 22. Governor Walz launches Kids Deserve a Shot vaccine incentive program for Minnesotans 5 to 11 years old. $200 Visa gift cards to all Minnesota families who get their kids 5 to 11 years old fully vaccinated in January and February of 2022. And it notes here, today, Governor Walz announced the launch of the new phase of the Kids Deserve a Shot vaccine incentive program, the next phase, to encourage Minnesota families to get their kids 5 to 11 years old fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The Walz-Flanagan administration is committed to providing these resources to keep kids healthy. While Minnesota is one of the leaders in the nation in vaccinating children 5 to 11 years old, this is still the lowest rate of vaccination among eligible groups in the state. And go on from there. There's one other item, I believe, that stems from this press release. As Omicron surges across our nation, we're continuing to use every resource we have to keep our families safe and healthy, Governor Walz said. There's a lot of highly transmissible virus circulating in our communities. By getting our children 5 to 11 years old vaccinated gives them critical protection against severe illness and hospitalization. You'll get $200 cash in your pocket for getting this easy vaccination. There was also an additional incentive that was involved in this. There's no better way to keep your family safe than by getting everyone who's eligible vaccinated. The lieutenant governor was quoted as saying, "We want to help Minnesotans start the year off by getting these vaccinations done." And it goes on to say toward the end there that Minnesotans 5 to 11 must receive their first and second dose between January 1st and February 28th of that year, 2022, in order to be eligible. And so a lot of critics of Governor Walz, Kamala Harris's running partner, Brian, have accused him of outright bribery back then to push the vaccination regime. And Governor Pawlenty, the former governor of Minnesota up until 2011, he said that Walz is the most liberal socialist governor in all of the United States. Radically socialist, in fact. So that's sort of a overview of the candidacy and the media going out of its way at the exclusion of all else to push the candidacy of Harris and Walz. So back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. Well, what's happening there in the States with psychological manipulation of the public, because this is what it's about, that's also taking place in UK, and we're going to see that in a coming to light in a number of the subsequent sections that we've got in today's news.